Welcome to the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you are going through one of the most difficult, agonizing periods of your life.
Right.
You write down your deepest thoughts, your most vulnerable fears, and you share them with a counselor. And the response you get back is, well, it's profoundly moving. It makes you feel seen.
It makes you feel understood.
Exactly. For the first time in months, you feel a genuine sense of relief. But then you look at the bottom of the page and you see a tiny, almost invisible line of text.
Generated by artificial intelligence?
Yeah. Does your relief instantly vanish? Does that comfort you just felt suddenly feel, hollow or perhaps even a little manipulative?
It really is the ultimate blind taste test for the human soul. When the lights come on and you realize the empathetic mind on the other side of the screen is actually a vast neural network of weights and parameters, do you reject the healing you just experienced, or do you question your own definitions of empathy?
And that tension is exactly what we need to unpack today. We're looking at the expanding role of artificial intelligence in psychological evaluation and mental health care.
Focusing specifically on the authenticity of AI, right? And how transparency alters human interaction.
Exactly. We're framing a core question today. When we reveal that a therapist or an assessor is actually an AI, does it destroy the authenticity of the interaction and prove AI cannot replace human empathy?
Or does it merely expose our own psychological biases against machines, which is, a huge question to grapple with?
Right. And we are grounding this discussion today in specific empirical studies on the AI assessment effect and longitudinal research comparing ChatGPT to human mental health professionals.
Real data, not just thought experiments.
Exactly. I'll be taking the stance that disclosing AI's robotic origin fundamentally distorts human behavior and diminishes perceived authenticity, demonstrating that AI cannot genuinely substitute for human empathy.
And I will be arguing that AI is already capable of highly rated empathetic support, and this supposed loss of authenticity is merely a user bias driven by inaccurate lay beliefs about machine intelligence.
All right, so I think we need to start by establishing a very basic psychological reality here. Human beings fundamentally alter their behavior when they know they are interacting with a machine.
We all wear different masks depending on the audience, sure.
Of course, but when the evaluator is a machine, that behavioral shift becomes drastic. I'm looking at the research on the AI assessment effect. We're talking about 12 distinct studies here involving over 13,000 participants.
It's a massive data set.
It is, and the findings are unequivocal. When people know they are being assessed by an AI, they strategically downplay their emotional and intuitive traits. They suppress their vulnerability. They try to appear more, quote, analytical.
Right, the behavior shift.
Yeah, it's almost like what happens when you leave a voicemail or talk to an automated phone menu. You strip away your natural cadence, your personality, and you speak in this stiff, robotic way just to ensure the machine understands you. And that shift, combined with data showing people explicitly reserve the trait of authenticity for human therapists, proves that AI cannot replace human empathy. Once the robotic origin is revealed, that genuine connection just evaporates.
I completely understand why you see it that way, and I acknowledge the behavioral shift you're pointing to. People do put on that voicemail voice, but you are drawing a completely flawed conclusion about the AI's actual capacity for empathy.
How is it flawed if the behavior literally changes?
Because you're ignoring the blind evaluation data from that mental health study. Let's look at the numbers. Researchers had 140 participants evaluate responses to deeply personal mental health queries. Half were generated by ChatGPT, and the other half were written by master's-level clinical psychology students.
Students who had extensive real-world internship experience, I should add.
Right. And crucially, the participants did not know who wrote what. It was a perfectly blind test, and the results were stunning. The AI-generated responses were rated significantly higher across all dimensions: authenticity, professionalism, and practicality.
In a blind setting, yes.
Let me just repeat that. The AI outscored human clinicians on authenticity when the patients didn't know it was a machine. This proves that the technology itself absolutely can replicate empathy effectively. The behavioral changes and the drop in perceived authenticity upon disclosure are strictly driven by lay beliefs.
Lay beliefs, meaning what? Exactly.
A lay belief is just a common sense, everyday explanation we hold about how the world works, regardless of whether it's scientifically accurate. In this case, the false assumption that AI only understands logic and lacks emotional capability. The barrier to empathy isn't the AI, it's our own prejudice.
Okay, but you cannot separate the delivery of therapy from the patient's perception of the therapist. The therapy is the relationship. Let's look at the second phase of that exact study you just cited, the 6-month follow-up phase.
The disclosure phase.
Right, with 111 returning participants. This time, the researchers pulled back the curtain. When the sources of the responses were disclosed, there was a significant shift in perception toward the human responses, specifically in terms of authenticity. We're looking at a Cohen's d of 0.45.
Okay, but let's look at...
Let me just finish the thought, because furthermore, trust in AI only correlated with its practicality rating. It was an R of 0.25. Trust did not correlate with authenticity or professionalism at all once they knew it was a bot.
Right.
I mean, the analogy here is vital. It's like discovering a deeply moving, heartfelt letter, a letter that brought you to tears, was actually mass-produced by a machine. The practical message remains intact, but the authenticity vanishes the moment the origin is disclosed.
I have to push back hard on that interpretation because you are missing a crucial detail in the data. If you look closely at the numbers upon disclosure, the ratings for the AI responses experienced minimal variation. They didn't suddenly crash.
Then where did the massive statistical gap come from?
It came from the human responses getting an enormous artificial bump. When the participants found out which responses were written by humans, they heavily inflated the human scores. The Cohen's d for that positive shift was like 0.42 to 0.57.
So they preferred the humans. That proves my point.
No, it proves that transparency doesn't degrade the AI's actual empathetic performance. The AI's words were just as comforting, just as professional as they were in the blind test. What the disclosure did was trigger an intense, pro-human psychological bias. They put humans on a pedestal.
I see the distinction you're making, but even if it's a pro-human bias artificially inflating the scores, we cannot ignore the real behavioral consequences on the patient side. If transparency alters our perception of the AI, how does it alter our own behavior when we are the ones being analyzed?
You're pivoting to the Equiture study now.
Yes, exactly. They looked at 1,421 job applicants, taking a game-based assessment. Candidates who suspected algorithm involvement strongly adjusted their behavior. They created a fundamental distortion.
They admitted to doing that, yes.
Right. They explicitly said they were trying to, quote, pacify the assessor or beat the bot. If patients or candidates strip away their messy emotional realities because they believe they must beat the bot, then AI interventions will never capture a person's authentic self. It renders the therapy or the assessment completely invalid.
That is a huge leap, though. You are blaming the technology for a temporary flaw in human psychology. I acknowledge the behavioral shift in the Equiture study, but it stems from a fundamentally flawed premise. The research identifies this as the analytical priority lay belief.
Meaning the assumption that computers only do math?
Precisely. We assume they reduce individuals to quantifiable data and lack emotional capacity. But the source material notes AI is actively building capabilities to detect, analyze, interpret, and mimic emotions. The solution is not to discard AI empathy, but to correct the misinformed beliefs of the users.
But explain how that actually works. Because to a layman, natural language processing just sounds like a fancy calculator counting keywords. If I say I'm sad, it triggers a sad response.
It is so much deeper than counting keywords. Modern AI maps the proximity of concepts across billions of parameters. It understands the context, the tone, and the weight of your grief based on the entire history of human literature it was trained on.
Okay, but it's still math.
It creates a mathematical representation of your emotional state that is incredibly nuanced. Once people understand that modern AI comprehends emotional nuance just as well as a human, that urge to beat the bot will disappear.
I hear you, but I think we need to pause on your use of the word comprehends. Mapping the geometry of human emotion in a database is not the same as feeling it. Mimicry is not empathy.
Well, I just don't buy that.
Let me just say, when an AI detects a pattern indicating sadness and outputs a response mimicking compassion, it is executing code. It has no biological stake in the interaction, and patients intuitively know this. That is why they alter their behavior.
You're letting philosophical purity get in the way of actual health care. The real-world data demands we use AI, because for most people, the alternative isn't a highly trained human therapist. The alternative is absolutely nothing.
You're talking about the global shortage.
Yes. Look at the World Health Organization data. 70% of people with mental illnesses globally do not receive treatment. In developed countries, we have only 9 psychiatrists per 100,000 people.
It's a severe shortage, yes.
And it drops to 0.1 per 100,000 in low-income countries. That is essentially zero. AI is a critical necessity. We have chatbots like Wobot or Wiza, which is designed with an empathetic conversational style, and Tess. They have been shown to reduce depression symptoms.
They offer immediate support, sure.
For those hesitant due to stigma, AI offers a consistent, anonymous alternative that blind tests prove is highly effective. Arguing over whether its empathy is biologically real is a philosophical luxury we can't afford in a mental health crisis.
I recognize the immense scalability of tools like Wobot. I do. Cognitive behavioral therapy is highly structured. It's rule-based, identifying cognitive distortions. That is incredibly well-suited for an algorithm to deliver. But we have to draw a strict boundary based on the evidence.
A boundary of what exactly?
A boundary of complex emotional trauma. The text explicitly notes the inability of chatbots to fully comprehend complex, contradictory human emotions. A chatbot is fantastic for a breathing exercise at 3 a.m., but it cannot sit in silence and truly hold the weight of your grief.
I disagree that human therapists are always capable of that either, though.
Well, when a patient presents with layered trauma, maybe they love the person who abused them, or they feel immense guilt for surviving a tragedy, an algorithm is inevitably going to hit a wall. AI can serve as a complement to expand access, but it cannot genuinely substitute the authentic empathy of a human professional.
But you're judging AI against a romanticized version of human therapy. Have you considered that human therapists fail to comprehend complex emotions all the time? They get tired, they get burned out, they have unconscious biases.
They are still human.
Right. But the AI is consistently available, 24/7, without judgment, and its efficacy is continuously improving. When a patient interacts with Wiza, they are engaging in a therapeutic alliance. If that alliance yields a reduction in severe anxiety, then the empathy was successfully delivered.
As we bring this discussion to a close, I think we've really mapped out the boundaries of this incredible shift in psychological care.
Definitely.
My summary position remains that while AI has immense practical utility and scalability in mental health, the disclosure of its robotic origin fundamentally alters user behavior. It caps its authenticity. We saw it at the Equalture study. People suppress their emotional reality to beat the bots. True empathy requires a shared human experience that algorithms just cannot replace.
And my summary is that AI's empathetic capabilities actually outscored humans in blind tests. The barriers of authenticity and the behavioral distortions you've highlighted are merely psychological hurdles of transparency. As label leafs catch up to AI's true emotional intelligence, these barriers will fade. The empathy itself is real because the healing is real.
We can certainly both agree that the integration of AI into high-stakes human assessments and mental health care is an incredibly delicate balance of transparency, trust, and capability.
Absolutely. We have to look very closely at our own biases toward machines. And based on the source material we've reviewed today, there is so much more to explore regarding how AI will continue to evolve in detecting and mimicking human emotion.
The one that brought you to tears, right up until the exact moment you saw it was generated by a machine. We leave it to you, the listener, to form your own conclusion. In the depths of our most vulnerable moments, does the origin of the empathy matter as much as the empathy itself?